Understanding Michigan contract law is essential for anyone entering into agreements within the state. Whether you're a business owner, homeowner, or individual making a deal, knowing the rules can protect your interests and prevent costly disputes. A contract is a legally enforceable agreement between individuals or entities that governs specific aspects of business or personal interactions. These agreements dictate how sales, purchases, and provisions of goods or services are formed and enforced. For a contract to be legally binding in Michigan, it must contain several key elements. These include parties who are competent to enter into an agreement, proper subject matter, consideration, mutuality of agreement, and mutuality of obligation. Some contract cases require clear and convincing evidence to prove certain elements, such as oral contracts, modifications to existing agreements, or waiving of contractual terms. Michigan's Statute of Frauds requires specific types of contracts to be in writing to be legally enforceable. These include contracts involving real estate, such as property sales or leases longer than 1 year. Agreements that cannot be performed within 1 year from formation must also be written. The same applies to contracts for the sale of goods worth $1,000 or more under Michigan's Uniform Commercial Code, and surety agreements where one party guarantees another's debt. Without proper documentation, these contracts may be deemed unenforceable, though partial performance or reliance sometimes allows enforcement despite lacking written documentation. The foundation of any contract is a valid offer and acceptance. Courts must be able to determine what is being offered and what is requested in return. There must be evidence of a meeting of the minds, showing both parties agreed to the same terms. When contractual terms are clear and unambiguous, a meeting of the minds exists, even if one party subjectively understands the terms differently. However, when genuine misunderstanding arises from ambiguity, no meeting of the minds exists. Without a formal contract, courts may enforce obligations based on equitable principles to prevent unfair benefits or burdens. Not all contracts in Michigan are enforceable. A contract may be void or voidable if it involves fraud or misrepresentation, where one party knowingly provides false information. Contracts signed under duress or undue influence may not be legally binding. Agreements involving illegal activities are automatically void. Courts may refuse to uphold unconscionable contracts that are so unfair that enforcing them would be unjust. Michigan courts assess whether parties entered agreements voluntarily and whether terms align with state contract law principles. A contract is only legally binding if it provides mutual benefit to both parties, commonly referred to as consideration. When someone promises something without receiving anything in return, the agreement is usually unenforceable. This often occurs when a party attempts to renegotiate solely for their own benefit. When determining contractual rights and obligations, courts consider the intention of the parties. A contract must be properly construed to carry that intention into effect. When a written contract contains clear, unambiguous language with definite meaning, courts need not look to external evidence to determine intent. If the entire contract language is unambiguous, courts will not search for meanings or make inferences about the parties' intentions. A contract is considered ambiguous when its language permits multiple reasonable interpretations or appears inconsistent. In such cases, factual development becomes necessary to determine the parties' intentions. Generally, ambiguous contract language is construed against the drafter, a principle known as contra proferentum. This rule applies only when conventional interpretation methods, including evaluation of relevant external evidence, fail to determine the parties' intentions. Breach of contract occurs when a party fails to fulfill a material term of the agreement. Although intentional breaches may have additional consequences, contracts typically focus on performance rather than intent. The three types of breach include material breach, anticipatory breach, and substantial performance. When a contract is breached in Michigan, the non-breaching party can seek various legal remedies. These include compensatory damages, which provide monetary compensation for losses resulting from the breach. Consequential damages reimburse foreseeable losses caused by the breach, such as lost profits. Specific performance is a court order requiring the breaching party to fulfill their contractual obligations, commonly used in real estate disputes. Rescission cancels the contract and restores both parties to their original positions. Restitution requires the breaching party to return benefits received under the contract. The appropriate remedy depends on the nature of the breach and damages suffered. Michigan law establishes time limits for filing contract-related lawsuits. Under Michigan law, the statute of limitations for breach of contract cases is generally 6 years for both written and oral contracts, unless the contract involves the sale of goods. Contracts under the Uniform Commercial Code, such as sales of goods, have a 4-year limitation period. Failing to file within these timeframes may result in losing the right to pursue legal action. Michigan contract law provides a framework for creating enforceable agreements and resolving disputes. Understanding the essential elements of valid contracts, written requirements under the statute of frauds, and available remedies for breach can help protect your interests. Whether entering into business agreements, real estate transactions, or personal contracts, knowing Michigan's legal requirements ensures your contracts will stand up in court if disputes arise.